All right, so the Thunder defeat the Nuggets 102-87 in a game that feels like a statement game. We hear Thunder, even though I feel like the every NBA fan already knew the Thunder were here. It's not like we needed them to actually announce it. I think everybody pretty much knows that this Thunder team is the most talented or the second most talented team in the West, and mostly everybody has them at least going to the Western Conference Finals or making it out the West. But going against a Nuggets team that has won a championship that a lot of people are high on, including myself, going into this game, I do think it is a statement game to go into Denver and not just beat the Nuggets, but actually beat them by double digits. I think I learned more about the Nuggets today than I did about the Thunder. I'll get into that, but first, just got to shout out the winners, right? You got to talk about them first. Don't want to make this game about the team that lost right away. Chet Holmgren, 25 and 14, dominates this game, the best player in the game. It's actually scary to think how young this OKC team is and all the pieces that they have. It's also scary to think that Isaiah Hartenstein was injured for this game, and the Thunder could have possibly had two big men dominating this game the way that they dominated. I know Isaiah's a different player than Chet, but the rim protection was there in New York. And if that carries over to this year as well, they seem like they have a formidable front line, which seemed to be a problem last year. This team is really freaking good. Shea was outstanding today as well. They're just a really, really, really good team. Had a slow start. Denver, I thought played, I think for the most part, Denver played good defense. It wasn't like Denver was letting up easy shots. They collapsed on the paint. But when you keep getting into the paint the way the Oklahoma City Thunder did, you're going to get good shots eventually. You're going to wear down on defense. And that's pretty much the story of the game on that side of the ball for me. Oklahoma City just with a dominant performance, showing that they are the better team than the Denver Nuggets right now. And quite frankly, I don't see how that's going to change throughout the year. I'm somebody who was high on the Nuggets. I thought the Nuggets would be really good this year. But obviously, it's one game. Don't want to change my mind too quickly, but there are, well, I wouldn't say are some red flags. I would say there's one huge red flag, a generality, I would say, and that is their bench, right? Now, again, in basketball, it's weird, right? You don't want to judge a team based off of one game. I like to take everything in tens, right? So, like the first 10 games of the season, now you evaluate. Next 10, then you evaluate. Next 10, then you evaluate, right? Because judging a team off one game is silly. We saw the Minnesota Timberwolves go into Los Angeles and they got smacked by the Lakers. Today, a very inspiring effort against the Sacramento Kings in a game that they were down. And you see the vision, right? You see Julius Randle have a great game. You see Dante DiVincenzo have a good game, and then mesh together with Anthony Edwards looking comfortable. The vision is there. They have things to work on, but the vision is there. With the Nuggets, I don't know what the vision is, really. And a matter of fact, the way that this roster is constructed, I don't see a way where you can justify putting them in the upper echelon of Western Conference teams. Like, how could you even do that with their bench? The one red flag that I am talking about is their bench, not Russell Westbrook, not Strother, not Peyton Watson. It's their whole bench and the lack of shooting. And when they're out there, you don't have to respect a 3-point shot, no matter who you have out there. We saw them play with Jokic, and all the Thunder would do was double Jokic because he would have to make a pass out to someone like a Peyton Watson or a Russell Westbrook. And the Thunder are like, you're not going to beat us from three. And they're absolutely correct. As a matter of fact, most teams will be correct about that. The Denver Nuggets bench is awful. It is an awful bench. There is no shooting. There is no shot creation outside of maybe Jokic or Jamal Murray playing with them. It's going to be like this all year. I don't know how you don't think it's going to be like this all year. The one positive that they have is athleticism, which is something that I don't know if you guys watched the TNT halftime show, but that's something that Kenny Smith decided he wanted to waste his big board session on, was the Nuggets bench and their athleticism and how that's going to be a positive for them. Meanwhile, they're the reason why they're down in the game and probably the glaring weak spot on their team, even after one half of basketball. That's what you wanted to highlight. The Denver bench's athleticism, which, to be fair, they have, but that's not going to cover up the lack of shooting that they don't have. It's, I don't know. I thought that was pretty weird. But to me, this is not the same Denver team. They don't go hand in hand like they did in their championship years. The talent's just not there. And I think a lot of, I guess, attention went to KCP, leaving to Orlando. You had Bruce Brown go 2 years ago, and everyone's like, well, how are you going to replace KCP? Can Christian Brown replace KCP? And I think Christian Brown's going to be fine. He's not the shooter that KCP is. He is close to the defender that KCP is, and he's more athletic than KCP. Today saw a play where Jokic drive and kick, Brown pump fake, gets to the rim, layup. So it may not be a three, but it's still an effective way to play basketball, and maybe he gets better at shooting the three. So I don't think that's the problem here. Will they miss KCP? Sure, they might miss KCP a little bit, but to me, that's not the problem. I just don't know how this bench keeps you in games against a Dallas Mavericks team, against an Oklahoma City Thunder team, against the Minnesota Timberwolves. It's just not going to happen, especially in the playoffs. You're going to have to go 6-7 deep, which I know some teams do sometimes, but that's a lot. And even the front end talent for the Nuggets, I don't know if they are as cohesive yet. Now that's remains to be seen. Maybe they will later on. And of course, the trade deadline comes so you can address a lot of issues. But if I'm a Nuggets fan right now, I am very discouraged. Again, it's one game. Don't want to make absurd generalities about the Nuggets. But I think it was pretty clear that the Oklahoma City Thunder were the better team today. Like, not even close. Not even close. There's a lot of work to do. It's very similar to when I watched the Knicks versus the Celtics. The Celtics, even though they shot a record amount of threes that went in and they just were unconscious, it was pretty obvious. Like, okay, these two teams are on separate levels. And that's what it felt like watching the Thunder and the Nuggets today. And the difference is, the Knicks, to me, don't know who they are yet, and they're going to need 81 games or whatever it is to figure it out. And maybe if they do figure it out, which is a huge if, maybe that ceiling can come close to what the Celtics ceiling is, or maybe just below, so that they can win in a 7-game series. The problem with the Nuggets is I don't see that ceiling being that high. I know they won a championship, but your bench is important. Shooting is important. They don't have that right now. You cannot sell me a version of this team that wins the Western Conference. You can't. So I don't want to get too crazy, too hyperbolic, but huge red flag. Not going to write them off just yet. They were number 4 in our power rankings. I had them higher. Quab had them at 6. So Quab, after one game, looking well, but they can go and win 8 straight, and we're having a different conversation. But something has to be done. Mike Malone needs to have some type of change where there's at least some spacing on the floor in the second unit. I just don't know if they have that. I don't. And for the life of me, I don't understand why they thought Russell Westbrook was the solution to some of their problems or would actually add value to this team. Not that he's not talented, not that he's not one of the greatest players of all time, but let's be honest, he's not a fit for this team. If you lack shooting, and you plan on playing Peyton Watson, like, who is shooting under 30% career, I know it's 2 years. Julian Strother, who same thing. Like, what are we doing? what is going on? It makes no sense. He's somebody who needs to be high usage, who needs to run an offense, needs to run through him. And there aren't many teams like that in the National Basketball Association that honestly should give the keys to him anymore, because he's not what he used to be. It just is what it is. And it's his playing style. It is what it is. So, to me, I can say a lot about the Thunder. They're just a well-rounded team. They are them and Dallas right now. I know it's one game, but they're looking like the 2 best teams in the West. Obviously, that can change. Don't want to, make grand proclamations. Quab and I are going to do power rankings every Friday or so. So, look out for that. Let me know what you think about the game in the comments, and we'll catch you next time for another episode of The Dime.